Good morning to all of you. I am Arun Prasad R from the Department of English, SN College, Kollam, Kerala. Today we are going to discuss a poem. The title of the poem that we are going to discuss today is Shelley's To a Skylark. So the title of the poem is very familiar to you, and let us go outright into the discussion of the poem. Now, as you all know, Shelley is a romantic poet. So, first let us discuss about Shelley as a poet, and more than that, a romantic poet. So, on the board, you can see some of the romantic features. So, romantic poets, especially the English romantic poets, they were featured by many qualities, such as one among them is their love for the ordinary, their love for the nature. Now, they were all idealists. That is, what do you mean by idealist? That is, they looked above into a perfect world, in the construction of a perfect world. And similarly, they were all forerunners of social justice. Mind you, the Romantic period was also the period of the French Revolution, and most of these poets, they were behind the theme of social justice. So on the board, you can find a number of themes from revolutionary ideals. They were atheists, they were idealists, they were escapists. They wanted to escape from the mundane existence, the boring existence of the world, and they wanted to escape themselves into another perfect utopian world. So all these features of the romantic fervor condenses itself in the poet Percy Bysshe Shelley. And today we are going to take a look at this wonderful poem, To a Skylark. Now, what is a skylark? Now, those of you who are very familiar with birds know that skylark is a songbird. It is a common bird that is found especially in the Western European countries. Now, during the summer season, the skylark tries to sing throughout the day and the night, and no wonder our poet Shelley was greatly influenced by the song and the enthusiasm that was expressed by the bird. So, let's get started into the discussion of this poem, To a Skylark by Shelley. Now, on the screen you can find the first stanza of the poem. Now, what is this poem about? As I had earlier mentioned, it is about the bird, skylark. Now, the skylark is a symbol. What does it symbolize? It symbolizes joy. It symbolizes freedom. It is pure, sublime. It is eternal beauty. In short, the bird, skylark, it represents the spiritual world, or as I had mentioned earlier, it symbolizes the ideal world or the perfect world. So the skylark is not a bird from the earth according to the poet. It is something from the netherworld. It is from the ideal world, the perfect world, that is the heavens. Now, the whole poem is divided into 21 stanzas and it contains 105 lines. Now, let's get started with the poem. To a Skylark. Hail to thee, blithe spirit, bird thou never wert, that from heaven or near it pourest thy full heart in profuse strains of unpremeditated art. Now the first line starts just like a Christian prayer, like as if the poet is wonder-struck, awe-struck at the bird itself. The poet addresses the bird as Hail to thee, just as we pray, just as Christians pray to Mother Mary as Hail Mary. So, hail to thee, blithe spirit. The bird itself is compared, is addressed as a spirit. So, from the very beginning, the readers, the listeners are given the meaning that the bird is not an ordinary bird, it is from the heaven, it is more than a body, it is a spirit. It is in fact the Holy Spirit, the soul which represents happiness, the godliness and divinity, something which does not know pain or suffering or agony, just as we human beings express or feel. So in the very first line, the poet makes a kind of distinction between the human beings and as well as the bird. Okay, so that is the meaning of the first line. Bird thou never wert. So in the very next line, he says, bird thou never wert. So something that is from the heavens. The bird is compared to something, to a spirit that is from the heavens, that from heaven or near it. O bird, you are from the heavens. You're so happy. You are so efflorescent. This is why you're singing so beautifully. So you're not an earthly entity, you are not an earthly being, you're from the heavens. Pours thy full heart in profuse strains of unpremeditated art. So unpremeditated art means an art which is so pure. Okay, so your song is much more beautiful than any song that is sung by any sort of human beings, by any sort of beings, there is no comparison, literally there is no comparison with the song that is sung by the bird, and hence the poet says the song of the bird is equal to unpremeditated art. Now let's go to the second stanza. Higher still and higher from the earth thou springest like a cloud of fire, the deep blue thou wingest, and singing still dost soar, and soaring ever singest. So the bird, the poet happens to watch the bird, and in fact there is a personal account that is said by his wife, Mary Shelley. You might remember Mary Shelley is his wife who had written the famous work Frankenstein. Now, in her autobiography, she mentions about an evening walk which preceded the writing of this poem. So, during the evening walk in the countryside in Italy, the poet happened to meet the bird singing aloud in the open countryside, and this is exactly what prompted the poet to write this song. Now, the poet in the second stanza is talking about the movement, the ecstasy, the joy that is expressed by the bird, higher still and higher. So it is moving away and away from the earth. The earth or the material, it represents the mundane, the place which is full of mixed feelings, sadness, agony. So we know that being born as a human being, we know that we are posed at challenges, sadness, happiness, remorse, and all sort of human emotions. On the other hand, the bird does not experience all that. It is moving away and away from the earth. The earth is a difficult place to live. It is a place where you experience the pain, the remorse, the sadness, and the happiness, and everything in a mix. And the bird is moving away and away from the earth thou springest. So you're moving away from the earth like a cloud of fire. Look at that revolutionary fervor in that particular phrase, a cloud of fire. The bird is compared to a cloud of fire, and it is moving away and away from the earth. The deep blue thou wingest, and the deep blue, the image of the deep blue, it represents the vastness of the sky, the heavens, into which the bird, the soul, is proceeding to achieve some sort of greater happiness. And singing still does soar, and soaring ever singest. And it is flying and fluttering up and up, and it is enjoying its own music. So that is all about the bird. Now moving on to the third stanza. In the golden lightning of the sunken sun, over which clouds are brightening, thou dost float and run like an unbodied joy, whose race is just begin. Now this particular event is again about the evening walk, wherein the poet was walking along with his wife Mary Shelley and happened to listen to the song of the Skylark, and this particular stanza describes about the evening, the sunset time, when he happened to see the bird for the first time in the golden lightning of the sunken sun. So the setting sun and this golden beautiful light over which clouds are brightening. So there is a literal tapestry of words describing the landscape, the setting sun and the clouds which are bright as heavens. Thou dost float and run like an unbodied joy. Again, you have this description of the poet. In the beginning, he described the poet as a blithe spirit. Next, he is presenting the bird as a cloud of fire. Now he is telling that the bird is an unbodied joy within inverted commas. Now let's go to the fourth stanza. The pale purple even melts around thy flight like a star of heaven. In the broad daylight thou art unseen, but yet I hear thy shrill delight. Now, the pale purple. Now that refers to the early morning time, okay? The early morning time when there is the pale color of the rising sun, and still the bird is awake and it is singing. So the poet happened to see the bird, listen to the bird during the evening. He is again hearing it in the early morning, and like a star of heaven. Now this is the next image into which the bird is again connoted to, like a star of heaven. So star of heaven might be the Venus, which we often find in the night sky in the broad daylight. So the evening has passed, the morning has passed, and even during the broad daylight, like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, the bird is still singing, thou art unseen, but yet I hear thy shrill delight. So even during the daytime, the bird is continuing to sing aloud with great delight. And next, let's move into the fifth stanza. Keen as are the arrows of that silver sphere, whose intense lamp narrows in the white dawn clear, until we hardly see, we feel that it is there. Now this particular stanza talks about the sunset time. So, and it also describes about the time when the moon is high above the clouds, okay? So the silver sphere, it refers to the beams of the moon, the beautiful, cool beams of the moon, and throughout the night, the bird is continuing to share its ecstasy. So that is what is described over there. Now let's move into the sixth stanza. All the earth and air with thy voice is loud, as when night is bare from one lonely cloud. So the moon rains out her beams and heaven is overflowed. Now here again we have this presentation of the song of the bird, which continues through the night, and the song of the bird continues through the night, and it is compared to that of the moon and the moon beams that is filling, the full moon beams that is filling the earth completely. So that is a comparison that is described. So I would like to stop this particular part over here, because in these particular stanzas, that is stanza number 1 to stanza number 6, we have the meeting of the poet with that of the bird, and the poet is awestruck. Throughout these 6 stanzas, the poet is talking about his wonder at having met this particular divine soul, and throughout these stanzas, the poet does not hide the fact that the bird is netherworldly. It is definitely a creature not from the earth, but it is something that is from the heaven, something of a higher capability and higher levels. Okay, so let's move into the second part of the discussion of Percy Bysshe Shelley's To a Skylark. Now, let me give a brief outline of the context of the poem again. The poem is about the skylark, and the skylark is presented as a heavenly creature, something that is of superior sensibility throughout this poem. Now, anyone who has heard the title of this poem would be reminded by a whole lot of bird poems during the Romantic era. For example, I would like to give an enlistment of those bird poems. For example, Coleridge had written this famous poem, The Nightingale. You have Wordsworth's The Cuckoo, as well as John Keats' Ode to a Nightingale. So nightingale, cuckoo, and all these birds. So they go on along with this description of the poem to a skylark. Okay. So this is one of the bird poems from the Romantic era. Now, we stopped our discussion by stanza 6. Now let's move into the stanza 7. So in this particular PDF note I'm presenting on the board, you can see I had marked a line over here to show that demarcation where in the first part, which ends in stanza number 6, the poet was an O in having met with the bird. Now from stanza number 7, he is trying to compare the bird to a whole host of images. In fact, it is full of similes. For example, it is like the bird is compared to something, then the poet then again compares the bird to something else. The poet is in fact not at all satisfied with the kind of list of similes after similes that he creates here. Now, let's see. What thou art, we know not. What is most like thee? From rainbow clouds there flown out drops so bright to see, as from thy presence showers a drain of melody. Now, in the very first line he says, what thou art, we know not. What are you? So the poet is trying to define the bird here. What is most like thee? What are you like? Let me compare. Let me find an equal entity in the earth which is as beauteous, as gorgeous, as pretty as you, bird. From rainbow clouds there flown out drops so bright to see, as from thy presence showers a rain of melody. Your beautiful song, can I compare it to the rainbow clouds? Okay, so the first comparison is with the rainbows. So let's move into the next stanza. Like a poet hidden in the light of thought, singing hymns unbidden till the world is wrought to sympathy with hopes and fears that he did note. So the next comparison is with that of a poet like Shelley himself. Okay, like a poet hidden in the light of thought. Such a beautiful simile, such a beautiful image here. Okay, a poet who is introspecting, sitting silently far away from the madding crowd of the city or the village, sitting far away from anybody. He is engrossed in thoughts. Okay, he is engrossed in meditation, singing hymns unbidden, and he is writing poetry, he is writing hymns. That is, hymns are songs of praise to God, okay, till the world is wrought. So what is the utmost objective of the poet? The utmost objective of the poet is to bring about a change in the world. So you, bird, you, skylark, is just like a poet hiding in a cloud, writing poetry to change, create a revolutionary, reformative movement in the world. Now let's move into the stanza number 8. Like a high-born maiden in a palace bower, soothing her love-laden soul in secret hour with music sweet as love, which overflows her bower. So the next comparison is with a beautiful young maiden who is not married, who is living in a high tower. Okay, she is an aristocrat and she lives in a high tower, and she is lost in her dreams in finding that perfect match and finding the perfect love. And so here you have comparisons, similes after similes. In this particular stanza, you have the simile of the bird being compared to that of a high-born maiden. Now, let's move down. Like a glowworm golden in a dell of dew. scattering unbeholden its aerial hue among the flowers and grass which screen it from the view. Now here there is a presentation of a valley. A dell means a valley, which is full of green grass, which is full of dews and dewlets, okay? And you can imagine a glowworm spreading its lights across a green landscape. So the bird is then compared to a golden glowworm flying, fluttering by the side of this grassy valley. Now, moving down again to stanza number 6. With thy like a rose embowered in its own grass leaves, by warm winds deflowered till the scent it gives makes faint with too much sweet those heavy winged thieves. Now the next stanza, that is the stanza number 11. I'm sorry that there was a confusion in the PDF presented over here. Now in the next stanza, the poet compares a bird to that of a rose which is embowered on top of a bush, a single rose bush. You are immediately reminded of Kumaranashan's Veenapuva, the fallen flower, the high-born flower on top of a bush. Okay, just like that, you have this rose who is invaded by bees, and they invade it because of its sweet scent. Okay, now moving down into stanza number 12, sounds of vernal showers on the twinkling grass, rain awakened flowers, all that ever was joyous and clear and fresh, thy music doth surpass. So the last simile, the last, that is the stanza number 12, is a comparison with that of the vernal showers, the falling raindrops on the grass. Okay, so here you have a list of similes from stanza number 7 to stanza number 12. So basically in stanza number 7 you have the poet comparing the bird to that of the clouds. Then secondly you have the bird being compared to that of a poet. Then the bird being compared to that of a high-born maiden and his music. So you have sound effect there. Then the bird being compared to that of a golden glowworm. You have the sight over there. Then you have the bird being compared to that of an embowered rose, so you have, which has sweet smell, so you have smell. Then you have the bird being compared to the sound of vernal showers, so you have sound. So you have literally every senses. The poet is comparing the bird to different senses over here. Okay, now moving down to the stanza number 13. Okay, there was a slight confusion in my PDF, but nevertheless, let me continue. Now, after having produced a retinue of similes, now the poet is moving into a lot of questions. Okay, so he produces a lot of questions in the next session. Let me read you those lines. Teacher's spirit, a bird, what sweet thoughts are thine? I have never heard praise of love or wine that panted forth a flood of rapture so divine. So in the next stanza, that is in the stanza number 13, the poet is basically requesting the bird. Okay, so in the first set of stanzas, the poet was in awe in having met with the bird. In the next set of stanzas, the poet is comparing the bird to a lot of similes. And in the next set of stanzas, he is telling teachers. So that means the bird has something to teach us. Teacher's spirit, a bird. What sweet thoughts are thine? What makes you so beautiful? What makes you so happy? What makes your thoughts so beautiful? I have never heard such beautiful thoughts, praise of love or wine, that panted forth a flood of rapture divine. Your song is so divine. Your song is so beautiful. Chorus, hymnal, or triumphal chant, matched with thine would be all but an empty want, a thing wherein we feel there is something hidden want. So the next, he talks about chorus hymnial. Now, Hymen, for example, is a Greek god of marriage. Now, chorus hymnial refers to the song that is sung during a marriage. So even the chorus hymnial, even the wedding song which is full of prayers, which is full of happiness, even that song is not a match to your song. Your song is so beautiful. Now moving on to stanza number 15. What objects are the fountains of the happy stream? What fields or waves or mountains? What shapes of sky or plain? What love of thine own kind? What ignorance of pain? Now, it is in this particular stanza that the poet moves into a set of particular questions. So he brings in a number of images, okay, a number of images. The images, beautiful images out of the earth, like fields, waves, mountains, skies, plain. Your sound, your image, your physics is more beautiful than all these beautiful images, he says. Okay, why are you so pretty? Why are you so beautiful? Now, moving on to stanza number 16. With thy clear, keen joyance, languor cannot be. Shadow of annoyance never came near thee. Thou lovest, but never knew love's sad satiety. So here again, he is in great praise at the bird. Okay, so we had just discussed stanza number 16. I had corrected my PDF slide over here. Now, moving on to the stanza number 17. Waking or asleep, thou of death must dream things more true and deep than we mortals dream. Or how could thy notes flow in such a crystal stream? So here again, there are questions after questions. Here the bird's rendition is compared to that of a crystal stream. And now here is a classic stanza that we are all interested in. You might have found this particular stanza as quotes. We look before and after and pine for what is most. What is not? Our sincerest laughter with some pain is fraught. Our sweetest songs are those that tell of saddest thoughts. Now, here the poet is making a comment on the humanity. So we human beings, we look after and before. We look at the past, we look at the present, we look at the future, and we are not satisfied. It's like we don't have this, we don't have that. So we are like basically very fragile beings, thinking, pining, being sad of what we do not have at all. Our sincerest laughter with some pain is fraught. And even when we laugh aloud, we have that tinge of sadness in us. Our saddest, sweetest songs are those that tell of saddest thought. Even our sweetest renditions in poetry, they arise out of some sad thought. Okay, so beautiful lines that go there. Now, let's move into the stanza number 19. Yet, if we could scorn hate and pride and fear, if we were things born not to shed a tear, I know not how thy joy we ever should come near. Now, as human beings, we are tied to physicalities. So here, the poet makes that demarcation between the poet and the bird, the human beings and the bird. The difference between the bird and the human beings are that human beings are susceptible to physical pleasures or physical entities. We are more tied towards material comforts, but not the bird. The bird is not wishing towards any physical comforts. It is just soulfully happy, and this is what makes the bird in a very higher plane, than a plane which is high above the human thought. And this is exactly why the poet is so awed at the sight of the bird, so much so that the bird was addressed as the blithe spirit. Remember the phrase blithe spirit, which was used in the first stanza. Better than all measures of delightful sound, better than all treasures that in the books are found. Skill to poet where? Those corner of the ground. You are the scorner of the ground. So here skona means moving away in dislike from the ground. Ground means earth. So you're a scorner of the physicalities. The earth represents the physicalities. Okay, so you escape, you're an escaper, you're an escapist out of the grounds. And this is exactly what makes you so beautiful, because you live in a spiritual plane, unlike as human beings who are tied down to physicalities on the earth. And this brings an end to the discussion of this beautiful poem. I really wish that the verse lines continue on, but here the poet has marked an exclamation mark by making that clear demarcation between the thought of the bird and as well as the human beings. So human beings who exist and who lead a mundane existence on the earth is placed in a sharp contrast with that of the divine, the spiritual world wherein the bird lives. So I hope you had enjoyed this appreciation of the poem. Thank you for listening and bearing with me. Thank you so much.